How many moons must go by before you begin to see that your actions of today will result in the person you want to be? My dad was in the streets. My dad was selling drugs. He went to prison, and that lack of presence, even though there was very little presence beforehand, um, was a great sense of abandonment. I lost my mom. I lost my dad, and I was lost. I lost myself. When you take things to the grave, that grave shows up a lot sooner.
My name is Reggie Ford. To walk and talk and breathe and play and act and work like I love myself.
That you are enough. You're worthy of all the greatest things that life has to offer, and I love you simply for being you. Listeners, tell that old self to step aside. Step aside, old self. Stop getting in the way. Yesterday you said tomorrow, so today is the day.
My conversation coming up with Reggie Ford is one of the more profound conversations that I've had in my entire life. Reggie has gone through some pretty significant challenges growing up. He has overcome, risen up, fallen back to rock bottom, and is now living a life of purpose, of meaning, of faith. His guidance to you, Dad, if you're struggling, if you're feeling like you're kind of at the end of your road, if you feel like you need to do more with your life, Reggie has some guidance and some insight that I think will be incredibly beneficial for you today. Thank you for watching. I'm so excited for you to get to know Reggie D. Ford. Let's jump right into it. What are some of the challenges that you see men in particular are facing in 2025 today?
I think one of the biggest challenges is the balance between being vulnerable and being the strong leader of a family, of organization, of life that society has told us we had to be. And so I think that conflict exists in so many men, especially as we become more conscious of how our past has affected us, how our relationships have affected us, and not truly having a map on how to show up vulnerably in safe spaces, to create safe spaces for those around us, and get things that have been on our chests, on our minds, on our hearts off, and relieve some of that tension, some of that burden, some of that stress that plagues a lot of guys, a lot of men, and who take a lot of things to the grave. But I like to say, when you take things to the grave, that grave shows up a lot sooner. And so in the effort to help men live happier, healthier, longer lives, I want to see more people flex their vulnerability muscle and show up in safe spaces and create safe spaces.
You talk a lot about that in terms of loving yourself, in terms of really being vulnerable and out there. Before we jump deeper into that, though, you got a heck of a story, man. Can you kind of talk to me and the dad that's listening right now? What's your story of perseverance? How'd you get where you are right now?
Man, a whole lot of love from a whole lot of people, and some grit, some true perseverance. So I came into this world to a 14-year-old mother who was battling her own chaos that she was dealing with, having been born to a 15-year-old mother. So, babies raising babies with very little guidance, and men who weren't there, or the ones that were present were often abusive, often neglectful. And so there was this, for me personally, this distrust from men. There's distrust for people who would come and go. And so that was part of the upbringing, was me, my mom, my grandma, and then my uncle. And for my earliest years, my grandfather was there, but there's a whole backstory on that relationship. But he had multiple families, and so it was a way of looking at the world where things that were normalized in that household weren't necessarily healthy. And so through that, I think my mom, one thing that she wanted for me was a better life, a better education. She wanted me to have better relationships. She wanted me to get beyond the limitations of her own life. And so she pushed me hard, and I ended up finding success in a lot of the things that she pushed me toward: education, sports, and I think I I I gravitated toward those things because I was receiving something that I wasn't necessarily getting at home. You know, my mom was there. She was showing up and she was pushing, but emotionally we were disconnected. I don't think that that piece of what a motherly love, like that nurturer, I didn't have that. And in her, I had it in my grandmother on my dad's side, and those were these brief glimmers of what that could feel like. But where I did get a sense of that feeling was when I got straight A's, when I scored touchdowns, when I made hoops. And so that is what I started to chase. And I started to chase that, and really my drive was a outpour of me screaming, somebody love me. I want you to love me. And it doesn't show up in a hug or a kiss or even the words I love you. It shows up in pats on the back, A's, and trophies. And so that's what I chased, and it pushed me. And I was responding to a lot of trauma from in the home, but outside of the home as well. You know, seeing friends die early. One of my close friends died at 14, or I was 14. He was 15 years old, murder. And then that started to happen more frequently, and just life was happening around me, but putting my head in the books, putting my staying on the field, led me to private schools, Vanderbilt University, business school at Vanderbilt, and that has led to a phenomenal career, both in business, in business as a wealth manager, and then also in my speaking business as a published best-selling author, and motivational speaker all around the globe. And so it's been a journey, but I think it's taken reflecting back on those periods of pain and seeing how those drove me to where I'm at, finding the places where it was healthy or not healthy, and then trying to correct that, and find love for myself throughout that journey.
Yeah, you did a TEDx talk, which is absolutely fantastic. I'll link it down below. And your ability to speak and emote and tell a
Mm,
story is unmatched, man. So that's amazing.
thank you.
You know, you're on this path that could have gone in two different directions. Obviously, you took the path that is the successful, the robust one. You had a couple champions, it sounds like, along the way, but can you think of any single person or situation where, man, had I gone this direction, my life would have been totally different? What were some of those pivotal
Mm,
moments when you're 14,
yeah.
15, 16 years old?
Uh, I would say one, like when I think about my champions, I credit so much of my perseverance and growth to my grandparents. So I mentioned my grandmother as that nurturer, that motherly figure, but my grandfather as well on that same side. He was a stoic man. He was a truck driver all his life and smoked cartons of cigarettes back to back to back. But he showed me love from a man's perspective, and I think still to this day he's probably the only man that I could like let my entire guard down and be me, and just like he showed me love like no other man has ever showed me love. And so I think that when I think of my true champions from my birth until their passing, it would definitely be them, that really set the tone for how I was able to allow other people to pour into me later on in life. And so one big one was Joe Davis. He was a man wealthy man from the other side of the tracks. I'm from the other side of the tracks. That's probably how they would refer to it as. But he started an organization called Backfield in Motion, which was my first opportunity to play organized ball for free without having to pay pads, registration fees, none of that. Like everything, travel, food, all of this was covered. And we developed a relationship. We developed a really close relationship to where he became my godfather. Informally, like I mean, I just referred to him as godfather. He liked it and was like, "We rolling with that." And so we had a really close relationship, and he was a man who guided me through a lot of a lot of the challenges that I experienced when I went to the private school, because he was pivotal in helping me through that journey, both, I can say this now, both financially, both just emotionally, and helping me just navigate that world because he came from that world. He understood that world. Um, I think coaches along the way as well. I had Johnny Matoya was my first coach, and he was a man that I could look up to and be proud of. He went to Vanderbilt, and I think those early days were the breadcrumbs of helping me get to Vanderbilt. And then when I got there, I had some great coaches. Well, let me go back to high school. Daniel McGugan. I cannot stress how much I I admire that man, his leadership, seeing him as a father now with his boys and the things that he prioritizes with them. It's truly inspirational. I think he's one of the hardest working men, but he's also the man who's going to show up to every single one of their events, and it's three of them, and they're busy. And so just to know that he is doing it all is inspiring to me. And then I gotta tip my hat to James Franklin. He's head coach at Penn State now, but I got to spend some good time with him when he was at Vanderbilt, and just his leadership, how he showed up, how he walked the walk, and for a man to stand in front of the world, in front of cameras, and say what he meant, and then come behind closed doors and actually do that and make us feel like we were loved. I probably saw him cry more than I saw any other coach, and I never looked at him as weaker than any other coach. Like he was the man, but his emotions and he truly cared, and that spoke volumes to me. That you could be a winner, that you could be the rah rah, that you can go and beat can I cuss on here? Like you can go
Yeah,
beat
man.
the
Do what
shit
you
out
need
of
to do.
people.
Yeah.
You can beat the shit out of people on a football field and still have this spot in you that is full of emotion, that is full of care and compassion for other humans. So yeah, those are some real deal great people in my life.
It's so cool to hear you viscerally talk about, all those men, your grandmother, your mother. There's this dichotomy and this need for both the women in your life to push you
Mm-hmm.
in one way, but also the men who have obviously influenced you in your life. And you can extrapolate that out, right? So, Dad, you watching right now. I mean, what are some little things, Reggie, that a brand new dad, no freaking clue what to do, or even just a man in this world who's just trying to make a difference for another kid? What are some small things? I mean, yeah, no, everybody's going to be an NCAA coach, right? But
Right.
there are small things that they can do that will make a fundamental difference in their kids' lives. What are some of those things, man?
I would say the presence, how important presence is. So I hadn't talked about my own dad yet. My dad was in the streets. My dad was selling drugs. My dad was doing a lot of things that kept him out of my life. I think he truly wanted to be in my life, but just that was the world that he had grown up in, and that was the way his mode of operation. And that really came to a head when I was 8 years old. He went to prison for multiple crimes, and was even convicted for attempted homicide. And I remember sitting there watching his face on TV, and all these charges showing up, and knowing that even the shoe drops off, the drop offs, the video game drop offs and leave, and the couple days or the minutes at Chuck E. Cheese, that was gonna be gone, at least for a period of time. And that lack of presence, even though there was very little presence beforehand, um was a great sense of abandonment. And I feared abandonment ever since. And I think for men and fathers and people who want to show up, it's that presence, but it's that consistent presence. And it has to be communicated. So it may be I can only see you on Friday, on every other Friday, right? It's not a lot of time. But now when you communicate that to me, I have predictability and I have something to look forward to. I know that there's routine in this. And when, let's say, that has to change, that schedule has to change, communicating that that schedule changes, now I know you didn't just abandon me. It wasn't my fault. Because what kids do, kids are very narcissistic in the most healthy way, right? It is a natural form of development. Kids make everything about themselves. And so if mom and dad are arguing, it's because of them. They did something wrong that made mom and dad upset. If dad disappears, well, why doesn't he love me? What did I do? What could I have done better? And so when you are not showing up, or when that presence is inconsistent, they're going to internalize it as something negative about them. And so to prevent that, it's the communication and reinforcing it. And you may feel like you've said something a million times, but it may take a million and one times for it to finally land. And so I think that is one that is often overlooked, is just the presence and the consistency and the communication.
That's right.
Um, and even going down to kind of Harvard research on the developing child, it's what helps a kid build resilience, what helps a person build resilience through adversity, and it's at least one loving, caring, supportive adult consistently. And so I say, be the one, be that parent, be that loving, caring, supportive adult in a kid's life, and you'll help that kid persevere.
That's right. And it's easy, especially with social media and all this stuff today, to be present, right?
Yeah,
But you're on your phone, you're looking at
yeah.
X, you're looking at Instagram. So to get there, commit to being there, and then try to not be unfocused and not present in person as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like the phone is a huge distraction. I catch myself. So there's this thing I do now. It's well, one, I limit my time on social media on my phone, but I if I go from screen to screen, I have to break that with something. So if I'm on my phone and then I turn to my computer, or if I'm on my phone and I turn to a TV, it's like nope. I have to break the screen to screen with something, with some interaction, with a walk, with getting up, with doing something. And so it's just a trigger for me when I feel like, okay, I've watched TV and then I shoot to my phone. No, no, like that's too much screen for me. And it may mean I need to pick up my phone and call somebody, or I need to go outside, or I need to go play with my dog. And just like how do you figure out a way to train your brain, because these apps and these phones, they know the psychology to keep you hooked on there, but you have to bring awareness to your own intervention and your own interactions with it, so that you can intervene and disrupt that. And so yeah, showing up and being present, asking questions, being curious, just being curious about the smallest things is a great way. And so if you're using your phone, use it to look up curiosity questions to ask a 5-year old.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that tip. That's great. I'm absolutely going to use that too. Break it up,
Yeah.
go from one thing to the other. All right, Reggie, fast forward, right? You've gotten out of school in high school, you've gone to Vanderbilt, you've got your business degree, you're starting a business, you are on top of the world, man. Everything is working for you. You're married, things are going great, but you got some demons lurking inside there, man.
Mm, man,
You got some
that's real.
things that are bugging you, and you had a breakdown.
Yeah,
Talk to me
yeah,
about this.
yeah. I had this mentor that I followed for a really long time. And he's somebody that I knew I could touch. He was a black man who achieved success coming from similar background as I did. Talking selling companies for 20, 30, $40 million, multiple, like selling companies that he had built. And fast forward, I want to say about 54, 56, maybe. I get a call that he's died by suicide. And from the outside looking in, it's like a man who has achieved all the success in the world right? You look at that and you're like, that man must be happy. Everything about that man's life must be going well. And this came after my breakdown. And I'm thankful that I had the realization in my own personal life to reprioritize things and redefine success for myself. And so I was 27 years old, experiencing a lot of success from the traditional sense. I had started this business. I'm working with professional athletes and doctors and lawyers, managing money, doing things that people who had come before me and never even imagined, but doing things that a lot of people in this world have no opportunity to do. And I I remember, getting nominated for these awards, and I'm nominated for Forbes 30 under 30, and I'm sitting there getting these congratulatory messages, and I'm laying on the ground on the floor playing with the dog, and next thing you know, I started laughing, and then I started crying, and then I started whispering, and I then like lost complete sense of where I was at, and all these thoughts and memories and experiences just bombarded my brain, and all of that tried to come out, and it was just like a vomit of words that I couldn't make sense. And I remember telling my wife, like, I had these moments where I would just go, I don't know what I just said, and then I'd go on a tirade of just talk, laugh, cry, laugh, emotions everywhere. I don't know what I just said. And then I had this out of body experience where I saw myself and I said, how in the world did you end up here? You did nearly everything right. Right? Not to say I didn't make any mistakes. Like, that's a part of growth. Not to say I didn't hurt anybody. Like, that's a part of life. But from the big grand scheme of things, I had done everything right. And I was on the floor in the most miserable state that I had ever been in. Leading up to that moment, I had barely any sleep for 30 days. And so I know that played a role in it. And the grief, the depression, the anxiety that I was dealing with, and not even anxiety from work. It wasn't that. Like, that was taking care of itself. It was anxiety that I couldn't control. I didn't know true anxiety until that period of time. But I had lost a lot of people. I had lost the nurturers in my life. I lost my mom. I had lost my dad, and I was lost. I lost myself, and I didn't know which way was up. And I got up that night after not sleeping for about 30 days. I finally got some sleep, and I went to my primary care doctor. I went to a grief counselor. I saw help. I was like, I need help. And that was one of the hardest things for me because I had become so self-reliant. Because when that little baby who was born to that 14-year-old mother had needs and worries and cries, and the baby didn't get comforted the way that babies are supposed to get comforted. And so what I did early on was I internalized that I need to help myself and nobody else is going to help me. And so I did that for myself. And that's what I continued to do. And the words I need help never came out of my mouth until that day when I felt broken, when I felt that I was at the lowest that I had ever been. Like, rock bottom for me looked a lot different than rock bottom for a lot of people. And I needed help. And I sought that out. And that has been one of the most fulfilling and rewarding experiences that I've ever done, of walking into a therapist's office, of talking to a doctor about my own depression and my own anxiety, something that I had never done before. And I'll tell a story about that. Before my grandmother passed away, there was chaos within the family. There was a lot of strife, and I was starting to feel it. I'm like, whew, she's gonna be gone. Like, she has a terminal diagnosis of brain cancer. We know that's gonna happen at some point, hopefully longer than they've told us. And I went to my primary care doctor at the time, which was a white male, and he asked me a couple questions, and I'm answering. Is there people in your life? Is this happening? Is that? And yeah. I think you're gonna be fine. And I remember walking out of that doctor's office so unseen, so uh, misunderstood, and to me, just saying I think I'm going to be depressed or I am depressed was like walking into that office with my heart hanging from one artery out of my chest.
Yeah.
And I think for and I especially and say that he was a white male explicitly because I think just culturally it may have been different for him, right? To hear that, oh, these people are in your lives, like, but like for a black man to show up and say that I need that or I feel that was the ultimate act of vulnerability for me at that time, and I felt that it wasn't taken seriously. And so I advocated for myself. I found another doctor. I went um, to a black woman who knew that was rare. To see me show up and talk the way that I did, she knew that that was rare, and she got me a lot of help. Uh, and again, therapists. I tried. Let me talk about that because I think it's important. I tried medicine for the first time, antidepressant. um, it wasn't good for me. Like the one in particular wasn't good for me. I actually felt suicidal for the first time in my life on the medicine. And I don't say that to discourage people from trying it. I think you have to experiment with what helps you. Therapy, meditation, walking, exercising, like all these different things. Medication helps a lot of people. So I'm not down dissing medication, but for me, I had to recognize that. I had to feel that and know I didn't want to experience that. And I could have tried a different one and things, but I hadn't exhausted my options prior to that, and so I wanted to do that. And so many different modalities of therapy, so many different healers in my life. Practice yoga, meditation, and things look a lot different than they did. That was just in 2019. So yeah.
Thank you for the story.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
for laying that out. I want to get into the self care because that's really where your bread and butter is when you're talking about helping people today. Before that, though, if there's a dad that's or a man that's feeling kind of similar feelings to what you did when you were on that high, when you were starting to doubt yourself, what are some things to both recognize, man, I might be going down this spiral, to pull yourself out? And what are some things to stop that and not get to rock bottom so that they can pick themselves
Yes,
up?
great question, Ryan. I think we all have responses and trauma responses or just responses to stress. And for me, a long time in my life, mine was perfectionism. It was people pleasing, caretaking in a way that abandoned myself, and being a workaholic. And I think that it those things, if you just look at that, like perfectionist, he's pleasing other people, he's working hard, he's taking care of other people. Those things are celebrated in the world. And so it's hard to recognize those as negative things that are happening to us. But I would say the first step is becoming aware of what your responses are. For some, it may be the irritability. For some, it may be turning to substances. For some, it may be the same things that were impacting me, and recognize when those start to amplify. I know when I am working, if it's late night and now I got a headache because I've been staring at this computer screen for too long, like that is an indication for me that I may be falling back into some of those patterns, and to check in with what has happened in these last several weeks, months, that is putting me in this, because I know now with the awareness that I have and the resources that I have, that I avoid that. Like I avoid that burnout. I avoid that perfectionism. I avoid the workaholic tendencies. And so I say avoid. That's a good wow. Let me sit on that for a minute. I'm aware of them, and I manage them. Because I think we do avoid a lot of things um, without feeling them. I feel them, I reflect on them, and I manage through them. And so I would say figuring out what those things are in your life. And that takes, sometimes it takes sitting down, journaling, and becoming aware that way. Other times it takes another person, an outside perspective, looking in and saying, I can tell when you are not feeling well because this, and this happens. And taking that not as criticism, but just as information of, okay, Let me see if I can notice when those things come up so that I can course correct. And then I would say, lastly, in terms of building that awareness and information about ourselves, is listen to the body. Like, the body is wise, and the body knows. You may get around a certain person who has said a certain thing about you, and your heart starts to race, or you can't explain why your fists are balled up at the end of a meeting, like all these different things, right? Our jaws clench, and there's pain, there's chronic pain somewhere because of how you show up. Like, listen to your body and listen to what it's telling you, and let that be an indication to help build the awareness. But I think understanding what those responses are, first and foremost, are the awareness is key.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And becoming aware, that's where you mentioned it briefly, right? Things like meditation. If you're training your
Mm-hmm.
mind to notice when it's wandering, then you'll be able to
Yeah.
notice in the day, oh man, my fists are clenched, my jaw is super tight.
Yeah.
I'm taking one or two more beers in the evening than I used to. These
Mm-hmm.
little subtle things, get up, work out, just do something to break yourself out of that cycle that you're in to really begin to move forward.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
that's very helpful. You you're big on this. You said this a lot in your TEDx talk as well. But going back to self care and diving just a quick bit deeper onto that, you always say you are enough,
Mm-hmm.
you are worthy. I love you simply for being you. So that's really the ethos of what you have come away with, as I understand it, Reggie, from you getting into therapy, from you asking for help, to be able to say, all right, I got this little kid that I used to be that didn't get what I needed. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to help that little kid out so that he or she can move forward
Mm-hmm.
in a better path. Talk to me a little about your self care approach to life and why we should really start to pursue it.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to echo that. You are enough. You're worthy of all the greatest things that life has to offer. And I love you simply for being you. And I remind myself of that. Can we see that? Yeah, I
Yeah, we
am
can see
enough.
that.
I am worthy of all the greatest things that life has to offer. And I love me simply for being me. And I think first I want to explain that, because I think people, uh, especially when you haven't had the awareness or understanding, like when I say you are enough just as you are without the dollars in your bank account. You're enough just as you are without having provided the life that you wanted to provide for your family. You are enough simply because you exist. And so that is a message that we as men, as providers, as protectors, as all these different things, like, we don't get told that message. When you look out into the world, there is an ideal man, and we don't somehow live up to that. So we don't feel like we are enough. And so I want to remind you that you are. And so that is what that TEDx is about. And a lot of my messaging to everyone is that you don't have to live up to a standard that is unrealistic. Like, you are enough just as you are. And I had to learn that from myself. And those messages, they get told to us very early in life. It's not a and it's hard, right? Because there's duality, there's complexity in it all, because competition fuels so many good things in sports and all of this. Grades, right? Going after that A, it helps to build something in a person. It helps to develop character and build resilience and work ethic and all of those things. But when the standard is, I just am not enough to get there. I'm not successful enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, handsome enough. Whatever it may be, it then creates a cycle of shame for us. And so I there's a form of therapy, called inner child healing. Some people may refer to it as parts work, or IFS, internal family systems. That is a type of therapy that I've gotten into, and it is meeting that younger version of me that started to develop those stories and narratives about himself, that he was abandoned, that he wasn't loved, that he wasn't, cared for, and rewriting those narratives and showing up for that little boy, like I wish the adults around me had shown up. And so that is one that I think is huge. But I think self care. it's not necessarily the pampering and things that is often marketed toward women, like spa treatments and things like that. Like that is a form of self-care. But when I talk about self-care, I think about, look at the places in your life where you abandon yourself, where you know that in this moment right now I need to say no to that task, to that engagement, to that whatever, but I say yes anyway because it's going to mean something for somebody else. You've abandoned yourself. Now, how can you in that moment say, no, I need to take care of myself? Saying no in this particular moment is going to help me to show up better for somebody else in life later on in life. It's going to help me to connect with myself and help me get the restoration that I need for my body, for my mind, for my soul. And so I think that piece is more so when I see self care, when I see people abandoning themselves, that intuition that is playing in their head. You're showing up for people who, there's something about it. You're like, I can say no to this. I can resign from that engagement or that board or that, like I have to, in order to show up fully for myself. um I think there are so many ways of doing this on a daily basis and really caring for ourselves. I mentioned meditation, and I think often we have this misconception that meditation is like blankness up here, like there's nothing. I'm gonna rid my mind of all the things. And it's, I mean, our minds are trained to think, like that's what they do. It's about,
all day.
like for me, meditation is about being aware of where my mind goes. So if I'm just sitting there in quiet, in peace and quiet, and I realize that I'm thinking, what if a fire jet hit that plane, and or hit that building, and then this bird ate a snake, and like all these violent things, I'm just gonna notice it. I'm not gonna judge it. I'm just gonna notice it. Oh, my mind is very violent. Or if I see people walking and I have this suspicion that that person is unfaithful to that person and that person's gonna backstab that. Hmm, what does that say about me? When I just notice where my mind goes. Not to say that it's bad or wrong, but it is a reflection of our experiences. And so meditation is great. I love yoga, and I do hot yoga, which is a form of workout, and that's why I got into it. I wanted a workout that was different than the gym, that was, from football, pounding my muscles and pounding my joints. That hurt, and so I needed something to balance that out. And yoga, I found yoga, and or yoga found me, and I really have gravitated toward that because it's a form of movement in meditation at the same time. um I think I still go to the gym now. I'm back in the gym, right? And I think I do it much more consciously. I'm not in there just trying to throw up the heaviest weight. I'm not in there competing with the people next to me. I'm in there with me and my body, and older than I was when I was back in, college, throwing up weight. And so and then I think nature. If we can connect back to nature, it gets us away from these devices and screens. But it also helps to restore our nervous system in a way that I don't think anything has for me personally, other than being outside in nature, away from the technology that we've grown so accustomed to. And I think fishing's a lost art. Camping's a lost art. I think we gotta get back out. We gotta get back to those things. Building a fire is one of the most peaceful things that I can do today. It's amazing. Like
And
going,
then watching
finding
it burn.
sticks, building. Yes,
Yeah.
man, it's so peaceful.
Two things you touched on there, that I want to quickly go back to. But yesterday, just, with my wife and our three kids, we were outside of cell service almost the entire day. We went to Rocky Mountain National
Mm,
Park, no service,
yeah.
SOS. Then we went and did some paddle boarding, no service at the lake that we were at. I got home and I was so refreshed, Reggie. It was
Hmm.
so peaceful.
Mm,
Um, but two things that you quickly mentioned there, meditation for one. I talk about meditation a ton on this channel. I agree with everything you just said. And meditation, and that's the essence. Everybody thinks, Dad, it's not woo woo. You sit in a chair, set a 2-minute timer,
hmm.
and focus on your breath. And when your mind goes crazy, all those things you were just talking about, Reggie, acknowledge it, bring it back to your breath. and then
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it again, and then bring it back to your breath. And that's building the muscle. You're in the gym
Yes.
for your mind, so that later in the day, when you're getting ready to yell at your wife or your kids or somebody else because you're frustrated, I'm frustrated. Let me take a breath. Let me shake up my hands. Let me drop my jaw, and let me answer in a more authentic, purposeful manner. So yeah,
Mm.
meditation. I couldn't agree with you more on. And then you alluded to it, and the word that I picked out through all of your discussion is contentment. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Be content with where you are. Right? Because we can always strive for that next promotion, that next job, that next 100,000, 10,000, $1,000,000, but somebody's always going to be above you. There's
Yeah.
only one person that doesn't have somebody above them right now, and that's Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, right? And they're still striving for stuff, and they're still not content. So
Right.
I struggle with that a lot, but
Yep.
contentment.
Yep. I love that word, and that is, I think that is the ethos of you are enough, is being content, and that contentment doesn't carry a negative connotation. Like that is like true bliss. That's true happiness in the present moment. You can strive for more. You can strive for other things. You can continue to evolve, but in each step of that evolution, can you be happy where you are? If things didn't change, could you be happy where you are? And I think that is something. I have this talk, presence over perfection, where I see these men, when I talk to men and fathers in particular about your presence. Again, I come back to that word, is more important. Your presence in yourself and for others, but like the presence and being content with the present moment, like that is far greater and more impactful and effective in your everyday life than trying to strive for perfection. It's not there. Perfection is not real. Be excellent, be great, do that, like be ambitious. I love that. We need that, but don't allow perfection to prevent you from showing up, from being present, and from finding that contentment in your everyday.
What role, Reggie, today or in the past, if at all, has faith played in your story?
Huge,
Really?
huge. So my I think so. I'll talk about faith in the context of religion, but then also outside of religion and just like a deeper spiritual aspect. I grew up I'm in the Bible Belt. I'm in Tennessee, and
Yeah.
so Church of Christ is the denomination that I came up under, and I had a very complex relationship with Christianity, seeing a lot of the harm that was done to me from folks that I felt presented themselves as most Christian. And so it put up it gave me this air of like there's a lot of hypocrisy in that. And I know that's not everybody's experience, but that was my experience. And so that pushed me away from the religion. And I remember making a conscious decision when I went to college, that I was going to write down values that felt real and honest and true to me, and things that I wanted to live my life by, and I was going to live my life by those things. And a lot of those things overlapped with Christianity, with other religions of the world, and but I didn't follow a set religion after that. Things like peace, love, inclusivity were some of those early values that, I mean, that is what is represented in so many religions, and I wanted to truly express that and feel that in my life. And but when I think of faith today, I think of something bigger than myself. It is tied to the same, I think, philosophies of religion, bigger than myself. Questions that are unanswered, and just a it guides me in a way of when the darkness is there, because I can talk about healing, I can talk about wellness and self care, but they're periods of darkness. It's real life. It's life. Life is cyclical, and so they show up. And I in those periods, even in the good times, faith drives me, knowing that there is something greater, that God is present in my life, and um, has it's written. Like I don't have to try to be enough because it's already written that I am enough. I don't have to try to show up in a way that is against my values or my moral code or outside of my body because it's written. And so I come back to it and knowing that I mean, I feel that my life has been truly remarkable. Like I pinch myself at times because I think about again that baby that was born to that 14-year-old mother who has expressed to me, there were thoughts of not having me. Oh, there were thoughts of aborting me. There were thoughts of that. And I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here. So anybody listening to this, like your life may not look like mine. Your the things that you've done, like we're not doers. We're not human doers. We're human beings. And and the fact that you are that human being that out of all the millions and billions of possibilities that you are here, that is remarkable. And so it is written for you to be here in this life, to be living the life like there is no mistake. And that's what my faith reminds me is that there is no mistake. Everything that I experience, everything that I will experience, it was meant to be. And my challenge is to turn what is perceived pain into peace, into power, into passion and purpose, and to turn the losses into lessons.
Because that's your purpose. I mean, you
That
and I
is.
we're different people. We grow up in different backgrounds, but we both have that one purpose. I didn't go to church at all until about a year and a half ago,
Wow.
and finally deciding, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going
Nice.
to embrace Jesus fully, and it has completely changed my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my
Mm,
kids, friends, how I perceive my contentment, all of that. So yeah,
I
for those
love
of you
that.
watching, thinking, man, do I want to try this church thing? Give it a shot. Right?
Yes.
I mean, it's a little weird, especially when they're singing. Everybody's got their hands up. Like this is really uncomfortable. But a bare minimum, I mean, at least for me, Reggie, when I'm there
Mhm.
on Sundays, the sermons that are given, sure, there's a religious bias to them. More importantly, though, it's just good darn advice for
Yes.
people to get in
Yes.
and pursue their week. Um,
Absolutely.
Values we don't hear all the time. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah. I
I've,
love it.
I've, take, I've taken a ton of your time, but I've got two more questions for you. I think these are the most important ones. So thank you, Reggie. But first, Reggie Ford, how can people find you, and how can they
Yes.
get engaged with you?
Definitely. My website is reggiedford.com. And then my socials are all Reggie D Ford at Reggie D Ford. And so I'm easy to reach that way. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, you have, I've seen snippets of it. I'm sure you have multiple different talks that you give, but if you're in a business and you want to motivate your people, um, think about Reggie, because man, you can light up a room.
Nah,
Good. All
thank
right,
you.
I'll like all that stuff down below as well. All right, two more questions. Reggie, what's your best advice for a man looking to, just break through and level up for the rest of this year?
Mm. How much time we got? Can I do it in form of a poem?
Do it, man. Anything you want.
Let's do it. I'm going to say this. This is called Today is the Day. It's about time to change your ways. You've been saying tomorrow is the day for far too many days. How many moons must go by before you begin to see that your actions of today will result in the person you want to be? Insanity, they say, is doing the same thing but expecting something different. But no, no, not you. You want to be magnificent. A word in Latin that means great deeds, but somehow you keep getting bogged down in the weeds. It's time today to change your ways, to commit to the process, even on the days it doesn't pay, even on the days that it rains, even on the days full of pain, even on the days you feel sick. You don't deviate from the standard because that's the whole meaning behind the words, I commit. It's time to lock in because you deserve your best. Others can't cheat you of success because only you were given that test. Ace it for all the broken hearts and aces. Ace it For all the deep scars and smiling faces, ace it, because you, man, you are destined for greatness. You've got everything you need to accomplish the goal. The only thing holding you back is the person you're afraid to get to know. Look yourself in the mirror and be real with your reflection. You hate rejection, denial, criticism, and objection. You love praise and the pleasure you get from external validation. You like standing ovations from your words of inspiration. You fear uncertainty, but know that in every situation, when you gave it your all, you exceeded your wildest expectations. So, Ryan, listeners, tell that old self to step aside. Step aside, old self. Stop getting in the way. Yesterday you said tomorrow, so today is the day. That's my advice.
The last question is diamond advice. I call it my diamond advice section. I ask this, Reggie, to everybody that I have the honor, like you serve, of joining me on this podcast. You don't have kids yet.
No.
But, maybe someday. And if not, this is just hypothetical. So you've got your 1, 2 kiddos. You've taught them as much as you can. You've given them all this great advice you've given me today. They're out of the house, but they've forgotten everything, Reggie. Every single bit of advice you've ever given them, except for one piece of diamond advice. What is that you want your kids to take with them?
Look people in their eyes, and when you see the reflection back to you, let that be a mirror to you, that you are connected to each and every human, that you are a part of each and every human and each and every living thing in this world. And because you are a part and connected, to treat them that way. And if you do that, and if we all do that, I think this world will be a much, much better place.
You're a special man, Reggie.
You are as well.
It's been an honor having you as well.
Thank you,
really
Ryan.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ryan. This has been beautiful. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions and your insights. It's helped me a lot this morning, so thank you.
Good. We'll get you back on. You have a good day, sir.
Yeah, I would love it.